Hello, everybody. I'll just give it a few more minutes, hoping to see hopefully Sam from the consulting group and others will join.
So yeah, I'll try to make it here before you close. If not, I'll just submit it. I'll come back in tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. So I might see you this evening. Thank you so much. Okay. You know this? Tomorrow. Okay. Thank you, tomorrow.
Still give it a couple more minutes. And we can get going.
Well, it's just me and you, Ken. I could come over to your house on the way home from
that's
City
right.
Hall at the moment.
We're right up the street from each other. That's absolutely correct.
Well, not at the moment. I'm at City Hall, so I'm
Oh,
it's a little easier. I was somewhere else earlier, and it was easier to get here.
Okay, well, I will get us going. I'll call the meeting to order at 6:03 p.m. And I'll just do a quick roll call. Diane Cece.
Here.
Kenneth Fiorenzo.
here.
Kia Gibbs.
Here.
Scott Goodwin. Scott. Brenda Penn Williams. Brenda. Jody Proct. Nope. And Susan Remsen. Susan, I see your name, but I don't hear you. You're muted. Okay.
Sue.
Okay. Okay. There's 4 of the 7 members that is a quorum. Now I'm gonna read the resolutions of the Reapportionment Advisory Committee.
Esther, is now the time to talk about last meeting's minutes?
Not yet.
Okay.
So I'll start by Hi, Scott. By reading the resolutions of the Reapportionment Advisory Committee, whereas the charter requires periodic revision of Common Council district boundaries, reapportionment, and whereas the Common Council adopted an ordinance establishing an advisory committee for the reapportionment of Common Council voting districts in section 925 through 931, and whereas the ordinance did not include provisions pertaining to the appointment of a chair, other officers, and other matter pertaining to the governance of the advisory committee, and whereas the charter permits boards and commissions to establish rules to address issues of governance and order, including notice, public hearings, parliament authority, rules of order, and the conduct of public meetings, standards for removal for persistent absence. And whereas the section 2-4D, E and F of the charter states that the presiding officer of any appointed board and commission is responsible for maintaining the order and decorum at public meetings and for the uniform enforcement of rules of order, including compliance with rules of order and determination of branches of such rules. And whereas rules of order that govern the conduct of business for deliberative bodies, including public boards, commissions, committees, task forces, and the like, require rules to establish the basic structure and manner of operation for the conduct of meetings and the administration of its functions, minimum essential officers for the conduct of business. Now therefore be it resolved that the Reapportionment Advisory Committee establishes the positions of chair and vice chair to serve the functions commonly associated with those positions, each of which shall be elected by a majority vote of the members of the committee present and voting, assuming a quorum is present. Be it further resolved, to the extent possible, the chair and vice chair should not be from the same political party. Be it further resolved that the committee shall keep such records and post agendas for its meetings in accordance with the laws of the state of Connecticut. Be it further resolved that the committee shall establish rules governing the access, comment, and interaction of its members, the public, during the meetings of the committee. And so, would anybody to vote on this? Can anybody motion? Press.
Sorry. Second.
Who was the first?
Oh, I thought I saw,
Okay, let's go
I thought I
ahead.
saw
Scott.
someone else raise their hand. I'll be first.
All right. Okay.
I'll second.
All right.
Okay. And how do you guys vote? Yay
Yay to accept the minutes? Yeah.
to accept the Reapportionment Advisory Committee resolutions that I just read.
Oh, okay.
They were included with the agenda.
Got it.
Would you guys like me to read it again?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I'm sorry I'm being dumb. I just,
No, then just to give you a gist, the resolutions is basically establishing sort of general,
the purpose of why we're here, right? So,
right. Whereas, section 3-4A3 of the charter requires periodic revision of Common Council district boundaries, reapportionment. And whereas the Common Council adopted an ordinance establishing an advisory committee for the reapportionment of Common Council voting districts in section 9-25 through 931. And whereas the ordinance did not include provisions pertaining to the appointment of a chair, other officers, and other matter pertaining to the governance of the advisory committee. And whereas the charter permits boards and commissions to establish rules to address issues of governance and order, including notice, public hearings, parliamentary authority, rules of order for the conduct of public meetings, standard for removal for persistent absence, and whereas the section 2-4E, D, E, and F of the charter states that the presiding officer of any appointed board and commission is responsible for maintaining the order and decorum at public meetings and for the uniform enforcement of rules of order, including compliance with rules of order and determination of branches of such rules. And whereas rules of order that govern the conduct of business for deliberative bodies, including public boards, commissions, committees, task forces, and the like, require rules to establish the basic structure and manner of operation for the conduct of meetings and the administration of its functions, minimum essential officers for the conduct of business. Now therefore be it resolved that the Reapportionment Advisory Committee establishes the positions of chair and vice chair to serve the functions commonly associated with those positions, each of which shall be elected by a majority vote of the members of the committee present and voting, assuming a quorum is present. Be it further resolved, to the extent possible, the chair and vice chair should not be from the same political party. Be it further resolved that the committee shall keep such records and post agendas for its meetings in accordance with the laws of the state of Connecticut. Be it further resolved that the committee shall establish rules governing the access, comment, and interaction of members of the public during the meetings of the committee. So now, would
Got it.
anybody move to approve these resolutions of the Reapportionment Advisory Committee?
I move to approve.
Mm-hmm.
I second.
And those who approve or vote yay.
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 Hey,
Yay.
Yay.
Any noes? Any abstentions? All right. Motion passes, carries. And now we move on to the election of positions on Reapportionment Advisory Committee. And the first one would be chair. Any nominations? You can self-nominate.
It's weird because we don't know each other well enough to nominate anyone. I think that
So-
I Diane and I've heard of Stuart.
Esther, we
Yeah.
need an
Yeah.
R and we need a D. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
who here are R's? Scott, you're a Republican, correct?
Yeah. I'm an independent. There's
You're
a
an
third
independent.
category.
Are there
That's
any?
fine.
Well, the resolution just states that they should not be from the same chair,
Okay.
sorry, party, from the same political party. So,
So you can
And-
have an R, a D, an I, any combination of two. So
mhm.
If
Yeah.
you're Scott Benjamin Goodwin on 18 Esquire Road, you're a registered Republican.
I'm not Scott Benjamin Goodwin. I'm Anthony Scott Goodwin. But thank
Ah, where do you win? Where do you live?
you. 6 Pine Hill Avenue in East Norwalk.
Pine Hill. What's your actual first name then?
I just said Anthony Scott Goodwin.
Anthony, okay. Very good, thank you.
Sure.
Checking on you,
Yeah, there
Scott.
we go. You're
Oh,
you're in the independent party, so you are in a different party.
That's right. Still true.
Well, some people that say they're independent mean they're unaffiliated.
Got it.
Not everybody realizes it's a party.
Got it.
We get that a lot, so I looked it up.
yeah, so let's, I mean, for the purposes overall is, primarily governance and carrying the meetings and obviously interacting directly with staff. So.
Why don't we start with, is anyone interested in being chairperson?
Diane, are you interested?
I will not seek, nor will I accept.
Okay.
No,
My-
I would prefer not to.
Yeah, my plate is also very filled. I'm on the Connecticut State Board of Realtors. I'm the past president of the local real estate board. I'm involved in a transition committee for our church as far as possibly selling it. And I'm the vice president of the West Norwalk Association, besides being a realtor. So, somebody needs to step up
Well,
if
and
I don't necessarily want to be a chief, but I could help if needed be, but.
I
again,
would be happy to help, but I
Great.
think, Esther, I had shot you a note that I'm out next week for the public hearing and will not be able to make the following Thursday either. So I don't think I would be a good chair or co-chair. So
How about I nominate Stuart to be chairman?
That's very nice of you, but I'm only ex officio. I'm not a voting member.
ah,
And I'm making a proposal too, so I don't really want to be chairman of the committee. I'm making telling you what to do. I want I want acceptance to be by others.
sure.
That's great. But kind of the wrong way of be casting a deciding vote on your own proposal.
Anybody else? Susan, Kia,
And maybe we vote for whoever didn't show up to the meeting and we all take a majority vote. That's how it works in corporate offices. You didn't show up and
So.
you got the
so
work.
Brenda Penn Williams is an officer of the NAACP, am I right?
She's head of it, yeah.
So. I don't know, and everybody else's that showed up to our last meeting, they were representatives of the city or the city council, right?
right?
Kia, are you interested?
Not quite. I'm actually still in the gist of understanding and getting into it all, so I'm not quite there yet.
Esther, what do we do if we're kind of at an impasse here?
Yeah.
I think at this point, I guess we can table it for the next meeting.
Okay,
And we'll just leave it at that. So just to cover our bases, because I'm not entirely sure. I guess I'm wondering if you guys want to move it to table.
So we need a formal movement. So I move that we table it to next week when I'm out. So.
Okay.
and
Oh,
Esther,
goodness.
do we need to wait until the next official meeting to act on this? Can we do it via email and something like that?
I will check with
Good, okay.
with
All right.
with legal, and then I will
Okay,
double check with them. Okay, with that, we'll move to the acceptance of the minutes. I shared the link with that, and I realize I don't have it. I didn't print it out, but
so I found one situation in the minutes. And that's under discussion, like the 11th paragraph where it talks about the team discussed the importance of a strict timeline. It says September 30th, 2025. I'm pretty sure it's 2024. Is that right?
Good call.
That was the only thing I saw. But
Yes, it should be 2024.
okay. So I move we accept with the correction. Anybody else?
I have one more correction, or maybe it's a clarification. It's under the section for discussion items. Paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think it's 7. Where it says that Miss Cece inquired about the potential impacts of changes within the city, particularly the shift of a large company to the redevelopment agency and its link to census data. I don't think the word was company there. I'd have to listen to the tape. What I was referring to was the potential for a portion of C that could move it, or A that could move into C, I think is under the purview, or would be under the purview of the redevelopment agency. And I was questioning what the potential impact of that would be, since the redevelopment uses census tracts and other criteria for expanding their purview for redevelopment. So it may have no impact at all, but it was a question that I raised, and I don't think the word was company. We may need to change the tape there, but it needs to be clarified.
Okay. Any other? Okay. So, do we move to approve those with those corrections?
With corrections, yes.
Yeah.
I move to do that.
Second.
Okay. All right. Votes to approve.
Aye.
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 Any noes or abstentions? Okay. Approved. We don't have any old business, and now we go into new business for the presentation. And with that, I give the floor to Stuart.
Fair enough. Do you guys have my, what I sent out?
Yeah, sure. Let me pull that up, sir.
Yeah, if you could. It's,
Do you want me?
well, I like to think I explained it brilliantly in the proposal, but I'm more than happy to just quickly run through it. Be good if you could get the map on the second slide.
We can go ahead and share it if you'd like to
Okay,
see.
I'll
I don't think I can without being a something on the meeting, and I frankly don't know how to do that anyway.
share it.
There we
Can
go.
everybody see it?
See, we got somebody that knows how to do things like that. Okay, if we're all looking at that map, what you see in the middle there, A1 and A2, to the dotted borders, is the first taxing district. It's currently split into two halves for voting purposes, but those lines are the taxing district lines. And then the A3 is another part of Council District A. But we also have these little pieces that are tacked on that really aren't in the Kendall area at all, but are still in A according to the charter. And we have to make up a voting district for those little pieces with greater or lesser numbers of people in them, sometimes very few. You can see how the taxing district lines cut things in half and so forth, or diagonally, or make weird things going through houses. We would love to clear that up. And the pieces, and starting on the right, the two parts of A4, the big one I call the George area, because the eastern border, the right-hand border of that is George Street mostly. It's not quite George all the way. There's some little more, but that's as good a name as any. The triangular piece is whatever the hell I call it. I gotta go up a slide. Yeah, Roosevelt Street, because that's the street right at the top there. I think you should move those into, yeah, you can see them. They already vote at where they would be voting if they were in District C. We have a split voting situation there with two parcels. So they're not much changed. Obviously, they're voting for different people now. If you move them into from A into C.
Hey, Stuart,
Yeah.
can I get a clarification on that? So you're saying
Sure.
that right now, even though they are in District A, they vote in District C?
Well, they vote in the same polling place. at Nathan Hale.
I'm sorry, yeah, and so,
They have a
The way
separate
you-
line. It's
Ah,
it's a separate
interesting.
district, little district.
got it,
For
thank
us,
you.
it's administratively very bad because nobody wants to work there because it has
Right.
so few voters. They got nothing to do all day long. And so it would be
That's
great if we could get them. And you try to take from A to C. So to me, those are kind of no-brainer pieces. The other A4 in yellow.
Recording in progress. I'm sorry.
The other little piece in A4 along Glendenning Street there is a tiny little strip of land. Basically, instead of going through the middle of blocks, it goes to the edge of the block. Bizarrely, the piece on the right-hand end is former state representative and former councilman Perone's house. It turned out that he never lived in D, which is where what he represented in the council, because of where the line was. The maps they had before we realized that were so small that you can't actually see what parcels are in there. You don't get it till I've done what I did here, which is stitch together the tax assessor's maps, which are much bigger and gives you detail and all that. So that logically would just vote in District D, West Rock, which is very near to it, and they'd be more than happy to do that, I think, rather than going all the way over to Nathan Hale. So less people's noses are out of joint. The other discontiguous piece is the A3 in blue. That's up by that other little street there. Let's see, come on. Plattsville. If you look at the detail on that, which is another slide or two down.
Yeah, I think you have to go to the other side that has
Yeah,
the
there
colored
we go.
blocks there. Okay.
Oh, that's Glendenning. You see what a tiny little strip it is. Here, Plattsville, it looks big, but most of it's the I think
connector.
7 and cemetery and other stuff. The only people living there are right along Plattsville, which is where that number 48 is, in the middle of the street. So there are very few people there. And again, if you put them into D, they would vote at Bonus, which is very near them. So everybody, these reduce A in size, which is the goal, without discombobulating many of the people. Yes, of course, they're voting for, if you're in the different district, you don't have the same council people, but they're not a lot involved in either of those. However, if you take all those out of A, you do get it within compliance, I believe. Now, I can only estimate from the number of voters because although I have the census maps, it's very hard to make an allocation across a block that's split by strange lines. So that would be sort of a minimum proposal, but would clear up some of the problems, save the city money, and not discombobulate any of the voters, particularly. They at least get to vote closer to home than where they used to. So after that, a couple of other tweaks, one other tweak with two parts could be made, and that is Ponus School votes at district, is the voting place for District D, but it's not in D. Now that's legal, but it would make some sense to put it in D. And it comes from E, so we could take a little piece out of E to compensate E for the loss of the bonus area. Again, there are very few people there because most of what you see is the school property, which obviously nobody lives on. There are just a few streets, and you can't move just the school, or you'd in effect landlock one of the other parcels to the east, the two streets to the east. And I have my numbers there. That's basically my proposal. You could do just the minimum, or we could clean up that other problem too. Whereas the consultant's proposal there that shows that is basically to also include that area in purple, which is not illogical if it weren't for the taxing districts. And I have no, I have no axe to grind, except that it then forces me to make a precinct for just that area. Basically making the same problem we already have, just in a different place. I'm not sure where I'd have them vote. Maybe neither Tracy nor the library are big enough, so I'd probably have to go to Nathan Hale as well, just be a little farther away. It is one of those weird problems that as soon as you cut a piece off a taxing district, it has to be a different precinct and because it has its own ballot. Strange state law. Would we love to fix the taxing district lines? Of course, only the legislature can do it. I don't even have a legal description of those lines. They are lines on a map. They go through houses, they go through apartment complexes, but this is the best I can propose unless the legislature got involved and solved that. Also, some of the changes, there's at least one place where I could put the people in the right district. The state computer system won't allow it because they have the same address, but they do have different apartment numbers and we know which is which. Where it goes through some of the other apartment buildings, it goes diagonally through the building and you couldn't split the buildings. It's a big thorn in our side and took me forever to figure this all out when the state redistricted 12 years ago. Because we blew up the maps and actually saw where those lines were and discovered all these problems. There's one other tiny little piece of B I'm not making a proposal on. It's around Neptune Street. It makes no sense that it's in B. I suspect somebody who had a political position in B lived there 40 years ago when they originally did this. And again, I don't want to criticize them too much back to 40 years ago. They didn't have GPS. They didn't have computers to do these things. And they didn't have Google Maps. So pretty hard to blow it up enough to see what you were doing. And they didn't. The map they had was very small. We actually looked down at that file, which is, I don't know if I could find it again, but it's among the records in the basement of City Hall. So now,
So Stuart, this what you've done here makes sense. I am a little confused still by that little yellow sliver for A4, but I think you said that's just based on.
well, if you don't move it too, I've got to make a precinct for a voting precinct.
Got it. And
just for
okay, I
them.
wanted to make sure I understood. Yeah.
Now you could send them to C as well, but there aren't hardly any voters, and they
No,
really are next to D. It makes more sense to me to make it D.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
And you can kind of see how the line runs through some lots, gets a few of full lots, pieces of lots. It's the taxing district lines were established before there were streets in many of these areas.
Got it. Hey, so one other question then, and this is maybe more for the Arkbridge folks. So what Stuart has done here makes a lot of sense to me, and it avoids some of the weird curves and gerrymandering that I've seen in other maps around the country. But and I think 9% is well within that 10% framework. The question is, I guess, from a demographics perspective, it sounded like we needed to also bump it up against demographics to make sure that we weren't, creating something that might be unfair in one way or another. And so, I guess, how do we manage to that? Is that something that you all compare what he's put together here against?
What I would like to say is that we looked at Stuart's proposal,
Mhm.
and it looks nice that he's being able to follow the taxing district. So when we analyzed it, for redistricting, we are supposed to use census blocks. And when we tried to match it up, it wasn't matching up with the blocks. And I'm happy to show you, to tell you, display what I mean, because in redistricting, we are supposed to use census blocks. And the taxing districts, like Stuart said, they're kind of just drawn in the middle of the house, or, they're just kind of very hard. So I went back and I looked at your redistricting criteria as per your charter. And the charter says that you should follow the taxing districts as much as possible.
Okay.
So it seems like, and I'm going to share my screen to show you how we can pick certain areas. And looking at that, we have come up with another proposal, which kind of follows the taxing districts as much as possible, and also looks at areas that Stuart has talked about.
Okay, so
if
before
you're
you get
okay,
into that,
I'll
just
go
to make
ahead
sure
and
I
share my
understand.
screen.
Before you get in, just to make sure I understand. So you took what
Scott,
Stuart.
we can't hear you.
Thanks. Oh, that's so weird. My
I can
mic
hear.
is muted.
I can hear him.
I can hear you.
So weird.
We can hear you, Scott. I don't know.
Good, we can hear
Ricky
you.
Yeah, but I need Preeti
Can
to hear me.
anyone else hear Scott?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear him.
I hear him.
So weird. Pretty's got a
Okay.
mute Scott button.
Okay, I got it.
Hey, so I just wanted to make sure I understood what you just said. So Stuart put together something, based on the fact that we have to map it to census blocks. You've taken what he put together and tried to map it as closely as possible to census blocks, and that's what you're going to share with us?
I tried to do that. And then what I did was, and I'm going to show it to you. What I did was I thought, let's try another way by which we would kind of keep the taxing districts the way they are and pick up some other area that could still work for us. Make sense?
Sure.
Let me
Okay.
show it to you.
Let's see it.
All right, so I'm just going to turn off a few things so that you can see better. I'll turn off the neighborhoods, and I can even turn off the roads, the labels of the roads. Okay. So this is the way, so what you're seeing on the map is the taxing districts are in red. And these are the areas that Stuart talked about. So this was Plattsville. And this is now, Stuart may help me out here. This is the Glendenning.
Glendenning, yeah.
Yeah. And this, what you called was
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
That's the name of the street at the top of the
Yeah.
black line is there.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
they don't
then-
have names otherwise, so.
Yeah, I have them and I'll turn them on. And then you talked about the George Avenue here.
Yeah, it's the eastern border.
Yes. So what we did was, when we tried to pick up the blocks, so I'm just going to do something which okay. So what we did was, so this is the school that he talked about, right? Over here.
Yes.
So, yeah, so what happens is, so we said, okay, let's look at these areas and I'm going to show you the blocks. So here, when I try to pick up the block, it just goes beyond the taxing district. Okay, then I pick this block here, and then I pick this block, and I pick this block, and maybe this one. So if we look at this, these are the blocks, and the number of people is 163 total population. And if you look at the voting age population is 123. So we can put this, and we can also get this little block here. There is nobody who lives here. So when we do that, so we are kind of crossing the taxing district, right? Unless we, and these are the blocks, these are the census blocks, and the population is by that. So if we were to put it, we are once again, we can easily put it in the green district. So, and I'm going to show it to you live. We can do that, and then what will happen is like Stuart said, this is the population, and we could say, okay, we will not pick this block, but there is, and we will not pick this block. So that is 35 people there, and we can take them out. But by doing that, you know, we can't, we would be crossing the taxing district. The same thing when we came to this area, we said, okay, this kind of, you know, it really makes sense to clean things up. This is a good block, 29 people live here. But when we pick this block, we are coming beyond it. We look at this block, we look at this block, and we look at this block, and we can put this and take this away and put it in the green district. We can do that, and we are kind of doing it live, but then we would still have, and our maximum deviation at this point is 5.86, which is good, but we have only looked at Plattsville, and we have looked at this Gordon, I think Glendenning. And then when we come here, look at how the taxing district is. See, there are houses, and the taxing district line goes like this. So when we pick up the block, we have this block, and it says 54 people live in this. And if we pick this and give it to the yellow district, we will still be violating the taxing district. So we can go ahead and put these in this yellow district, which is the C district. So we can do all those things, but then I went back and I read the redistricting criteria as per your charter, and it says do it as much as practical. So we thought either we do these changes, or what we did was, I'll show you, I'll go back and undo all this that I did. And just bear with me because I'm kind of doing things live here. So we thought, why don't we keep this area the way it is? Keep this area the way it is, okay? And the only reason we took these blocks because they are more in the green district. So you see that we did not take them. So we said, let's keep the line because they are already used to it. So now instead, what we did was we said, okay, let's keep the taxing district here, and let's take this part of this and this part of district A and move this up here and give this to district E. And then what we are doing is we are not changing anything. We are keeping it the way it is. And we are being able to balance it because we gave some to this district. So we said, what if we take this and give it to C? And that is the proposal. Just bear with me for a minute. And that is the proposal that we came up with. We said, okay, if we just make these changes and do not see here's to it, if you look at these blocks that you had identified, which is here.
No, it's actually, well, that's one of them, but it was actually the one to the left a little bit, but whatever.
Yes, if we
I don't
look
have
at
I don't have perfect counts in those little blocks, so you know, almost any place along there that you were, if you move the school into D, to compensate E, so it doesn't become too small, you'd have to take something off of A3, it really doesn't much matter where.
Yeah. So what we thought was if we just make these changes and we can take the school, which is here, we can take it and there are about 351 people. So we could put them in District D. And see, while I do it, can you see my maximum deviation here, 3.52? Which is pretty good, but let's see, because we have room until, let's say 7-8%, so we can do some changes. So we said, okay, what if we pick these, which is 351, and we move them to District D, like Stuart suggests, and here the blocks are good, and our maximum deviation moves to 5.44. So if we do these changes, we could very well not worry about the George Avenue, because we got some comments where people said they lived there, and if we move that, then they would be out of their district, stuff like that. So we said we'll just leave this here, and instead of that, we will take this area. Which
What's
is
the line up there that piece you're taking that you just showed? What are
yeah,
the two streets?
these, let me tell you just a minute. Let me make sure my streets are turned on.
One looks like Newtown Avenue and the other maybe Murray.
Hang on for a minute. Let me just look at where are my streets. Sometimes, yeah, they are there. And I'll make sure they're labeled. And so here, this is Patrick Avenue.
Yeah, Newtown, Patrick and Murray. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, and this is Murray.
Yeah.
So if we take this, then we have things in balance. But as far as the taxing district goes, I mean, we can't really do anything. We could really take this first block and put it in this other district, see? But see how this taxing district line just goes. And look at this block. See here? This little piece looks like Y, but you know, that is what the block is. And it's like, I don't know if there are some people who live here, but these are the blocks. And then, you know, the charter does say that do it as much as practical. But of course, you know, you have to see, and the same problem here. If you look at this block. It looks bad kind of going out of the taxing district, but this is the block and there are 175 people. And if we try to kind of cut it, then it becomes like, it's like open to question. Why did you do it? Or was there some vested stuff? You know, that is why, and for redistricting, they say, use the census blocks, use the census numbers so that there is no question and there is logic behind anything we do.
Look, it looks to me like you've created about 4 new voting districts, which would require about $100,000 in equipment just to hold voting for them. Although I have no idea where we would do it at the moment. And there's a million other taxing district lines that you haven't done a thing with to clear up. I don't see the point.
Once again, the point is to balance this. And like I told you, we got comments from at least one comment about George Avenue. So we said, because A has to give, right? And C has to gain.
If that was, who was that comment from? Because there was one from Elsa Obachowski who thought that if the taxing, if she moved to a different district with your earlier proposal, she wouldn't be able to be on the taxing district commission. Of course, that's not true because the taxing district line wasn't changed. Was there somebody else?
I agree with that too, Stuart. I think the George Avenue issue wasn't that issue that if the change was made there, that there'd have to be an adjustment you'd have to make for them to be able to still vote for their first taxing district commissioner.
The George Avenue people don't vote for taxing district commissioner. That is why That
Oh,
is
that's
why they
over-
voted Nathan Hale and not at Tracy or the library. By the way, we're
Which-
gonna use Jefferson for this presidential election instead of the library, just so some of you aren't confused on that point. Library,
So then can you just explain then what the issue is then if the bump out goes to George Avenue?
I'm sorry?
So what is the issue if the census block lines up with moving out over to George Avenue?
Moving what out
Or
to?
is there any issue at all there? You're just saying that it's
Yeah.
outside of the first
Well,
tax.
the distance,
Okay.
any area outside of I guess on this map, it's a reddish line with white
Yeah,
center
this is the
tracing.
taxing line.
Anything
This is-
outside of that that's in A has to be a different district, and they do not vote for taxing district commissioner. So the people in George Avenue, if that's where that person lived, does not vote for the taxing district commissioner now.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Neither
Okay.
does A3 at voting at Kendall. That's the whole point. They don't vote for that, so they can't be in the same precinct because they have a different ballot.
Another thing, Stuart, I want to show you is that there are some block issues here. So if I were to pick a block, then I have to pick this whole thing. And it has 231 people living here. If I pick here, this is good. I can pick this. This doesn't. But then when I pick that, this is good. This is good. When I
Look.
pick here, it goes and it takes this huge block.
I understand, and my proposal ignores the blocks in that sense, and I will never be happy with something that just cuts up more precincts that we have to administer because it costs the city a lot of money. Now, most civil servants would love to increase their domain and their personnel and other stuff. I don't think that's going to work for me. So, whatever. I'm just saying, to me, there's no benefit and considerable detriment to the city. It's a nightmare for my office to have to
Stuart,
do more precincts.
Stuart, what percentage of those dollars are you talking about are a one-time hit versus literally every election?
Well, every polling place costs
Were you
us about
suggesting
$5,000.
$100,000 added?
Every extra polling place that we wouldn't otherwise have to do costs us about $5,000 per election in personnel. Now, maybe when it's one with very few voters, might be $4,000.
Okay, and so then how did we come to? I thought you said earlier this would be like $100,000 hit on.
Well, that's for equipment, which we have to have new tabulators, although they're getting new ones from the states. Someday we'd have to have cabinets and all sorts of equipment that we send to the polls, computers, cameras, probably.
Those could not be at the same location, but a split. Like we
Well,
split scale 1 and 2. And
depends. It depends on what district you put them in. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
you
equipment
can also
itself,
send, we could now get rid of A4 by sending all those people to vote at Kendall. But that was never what they did. I mean, I inherited it this way.
No, I was
They
suggesting.
didn't do that, but you can see how much that's going to interfere with their lives to have to go vote at Kendall. So
Right,
that
no,
whole
what I was
area,
suggesting is that people still stay close to vote, but that you manage it at the polling station so that you don't have this exorbitant, increase. Because one of the concerns that I had is that I think you mentioned some voters under one of these scenarios would actually have to move from Tracy to Nathan Hale. Aren't there guidelines for what the maximum distance could be for someone to have to get to a polling
we
place or
try to
no?
put the polling place in district if we possibly can. There is no maximum, and all the parts of A that are not in inside the taxing district have to vote somewhere else, or somewhere anyway. Neither Tracy nor the library or Jefferson are really big enough for more than one polling place. Nathan Hale is, but again, this all is how we inherited it because it's been in existence for 40 years.
Yeah, and I mean, I really see the dilemma here. I mean, we don't really want to make a decision on any one factor that kind of messes everything else up, but, and I don't know if, Pretty, are you saying, is it, are using the census blocks, is that a suggestion for redistricting or it's a requirement for it?
Okay, what happens is that the Bureau of Census creates these blocks and creates this Public Law 94-171 data set, which is that in each block, so many people live, so many of different races. So typically that is what is used. Because if we do not use that, then we are open to question, because then we would be estimating the numbers. And once you estimate the numbers, then you could be questioned if anybody
I got it. Okay,
chooses
yeah,
to take you to the court.
You're
okay.
estimating, aren't you estimating the numbers now of how many people live in each of these districts?
Yeah, good point.
Say that again?
You're estimating the numbers now on how many live in each district.
We are estimating them by aggregating the census blocks. So
No, you're cutting blocks in half and estimating,
yeah, but
because
see,
that's
that
where
is
the
what,
lines now run.
no, that is what I'm trying to say, that we are not doing that. We are trying to use whole blocks. And we are
I
using
hear what
the
you're
whole
saying.
block.
You're not hearing what I'm saying.
Say that again, sir.
The current populations of these districts require considerable estimation because of the current taxing district lines, which form the borders of many of the districts and many of the precincts. The B from the taxing district, the sixth taxing district in Rowayton, the lines are all over the place. The ones for the first taxing, which is District C, there is the same problem. A, as you can see, and second taxing in B.
Yeah, for
Mm.
taxing districts is not something that we are working on right now. We are working on the districts, the A, B, C, D, E districts. And the way it's typically done in redistricting is to pick up the blocks.
Of
And
course. And
yeah,
if we didn't have the taxing district lines, I'd be 100% for it.
I do want to bring your attention to the city charter for a minute. Let me stop sharing this and pull up the redistricting requirements. And of course, you know, we are here to help in whichever way and make sure that we make a plan which is consistent with the redistricting requirements. So let me stop sharing this and bring the redistricting criteria as per your city charter. So let me bring that. And this is the PowerPoint presentation that I had done before. And it says redistricting requirements as per the Voting Rights Act and the city ordinance. It says use best efforts to include the boundary lines of taxing districts as defined in the charter within a single council district where practicable. And what I'm trying to show to you today is that if we are going to use the blocks and we are going to kind of try to keep the taxing districts, keep them in one district, it's not possible, because the way the blocks are, it will not work out. And that is why I said the charter says where practicable. So it doesn't say that you have to use it.
The thing you have in yellow argues against you. Where's the part that argues for your point?
I mean, it says wherever possible, try to keep the taxing districts in
Right.
one, where practicable.
Yeah, it's practicable unless, except for this requirement that you feel is there that you must follow a census block.
That is how it's done across the country. And because the moment we start splitting blocks, we are open to question, because why did we do this block? Why did
You're leaving 200 blocks split anyway.
but we are not.
You're leaving all over the city in all the other districts you're not touching, all sorts of blocks that are split by the taxing district lines.
Yeah, see, whatever you have currently, we are building, because see, one of the requirements is to keep your consider historical boundary lines. So we
Right.
don't want to drastically change things. We want to just bring the maximum deviation down, make sure, that all districts are as equal in population. So we are trying to follow these. But now you provide us guidance, because you are the advisory committee. How do you want us to proceed? Our recommendation is to use the census blocks, which is used nationwide, and use the numbers which the Bureau of Census provides. But now you tell us, how do you want to proceed? Because I have actually shown you the problems that we have. And I've also shown you that the charter does not say that you have to follow the taxing districts. It says
So-
wherever
so Preeti-
practicable. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So just to make sure I understand what you're saying and what Stuart's saying. So you're going back to the census blocks and you're saying there's a defensibility to using that because it's the standard around the country. Is the reason it's the standard because if we were to deviate it from it and follow something along like what Stuart's suggesting, because of the way our city is configured or our taxing districts are configured, are you suggesting that that would open us up to lawsuits? Or I guess what I'm thinking is, if we were to take it to the public forum and open it up for debate there, and over the course of that debate said, people are okay with it because they would rather follow the taxing district than whatever arbitrary rules were used to define census blocks. If the people give us the latitude to do what Stuart's suggesting, I guess my question is, do you still have concern with that?
It's about allocating the population and the demographics.
Mhm.
When we split a block, how do we allocate? If the block is split halfway and all the population is on the right side and we split the block, how do we allocate the population between the two split blocks and the demographics? Sometimes we do split, but it's usually maybe a block or two sometimes, but I guess in this case, we'll have to split a lot of blocks. And the question is, how do we allocate the population and the demographic data?
I think as we move forward, I'll just speak for myself here. I kind of feel like I need to be a part of something that, one, that I understand very well, and two, that I can articulate in a public forum. And certainly for anybody who's, going to ask me, because I sat on this committee. And I'm thinking this is not quite ready for prime time, as we might say. Which actually ties back to my original concern at the first meeting with this timeline. The most arbitrary of everything I'm seeing happens to be this timeline, in my opinion. And I still don't, I know Stuart may disagree with this, but I think because the requirement to have this all set has to do with primaries in 2025, which, I don't know, Stuart, correct me if I'm wrong, that's in February?
No,
For some people.
those primaries would be in September.
No, I mean for any voting in 2025. Well, what would be the
primary?
earliest?
The primaries next year are September, but the parties in July would be, uh, for making their candidates. Because,
But I mean, I'm talking about, this would impact voting, not just municipal, I'm talking about though.
yes,
So if we're in any cycle, say a presidential cycle, right? Where people want to
yes.
vote in presidential, okay. Which wouldn't actually be 25 anyway, but, so my point is I don't think this is ready for prime time. I actually still, the more I look at this, the more questions I have, and I've been doing some research that I'd really like to pass on to Sam and to Preeti, regarding one of the original questions we had about underestimating the population in C altogether, because there's non-compliance with census responses. And so I'm digging around and I'm finding a lot of information on that within the Census Bureau, even of where they're trying to get a handle on accounting for those numbers. And because I know the consultant said at the first meeting that that doesn't get taken into account. But so I don't have an overall comfort level of either one of these two plans to be able to really understand the pros and cons of both of them. And I definitely wouldn't be able to explain it to someone. And I really kind of need to see the pros and cons of each of these. And then if there's a third alternative that allows us to take into account, especially I'm concerned about C, because I think the population is grossly undercounted in the portion south of I-95. And because we're trying to align that, and the consultants have defined C as the least populated district for voting, I think it's an important thing that we need to address. So I'm concerned with the public hearing, and I'm concerned that everything I'm hearing here now, I'm really having trouble grasping the pros and cons of this. I also wanted to ask Stuart too. I'm sorry if this is a dumb question, Stuart. But how does this overlay to the Board of Education, or is that completely? This has no impact on BOE.
No, the council districts are used for Board of Education in district. As you know, 5 of the members are elected in one in each district, and 4 are elected at large. Obviously,
Okay, so either under your plan or the consultant's recommended plan, would anyone have any questions or arguments about then how it would align when they're voting for their board of rep, even though it's still the 5 districts, as we're moving these streets around? Are there any pros and cons to that on the board of ed side?
anybody who moves in a district is changing their the Board of Education member that they would vote for in the every other year or every other election cycle, because they are picked by the council districts.
So is there
Same
someone
thing for
sitting on the
councilmen.
board? Is there someone sitting on the board of ed now in that cycle then that would be sitting and serving but be out of their district when this goes through?
You mean moved out of their district? I don't know. I'd have to get their addresses. I could do that.
Okay. All right. If you're saying it like it would have no impact, I'm just concerned about the population vote.
Sure.
That makes sense.
I think you get what I'm asking.
If I might add one other suggestion, I think you probably ought to get something from the Corporation Council about the extent to which you must follow a census line in your work, or whether you have more flexibility than that under the resolution in the new charter, and whatever the resolution was that established the committee.
I have a question. Is there like a city attorney who could?
Of course,
who could
a whole
help
law
us
department.
out? Yeah, who could help us out? Because see, we are here to draw the plan, but we want to make sure we follow the rules. And if the attorney says it's okay to forget about the blocks and just do whatever, whichever split left, right, and whichever way to follow the taxing districts, if there is an attorney, somebody legal who can say this is okay.
I'll send you the department information. Do I have your email? I'm not sure.
I think Esther can,
Yes.
if Esther
Hi.
staff to the, go ahead, Esther.
Yeah, no,
Maybe
so But I think we've very clearly moved on to sort of like next steps. So in terms of information, I can make sure that our law department and the council that has been working on this
Yeah,
talks
you can just
to,
walk in the door on your way home. It's right out to your door to the left.
yeah. Yeah, no, but I've been communicating. I can make sure that the Preeti and Sam have the information of who to talk to.
Esther, more than us having the information, I think the attorney, if they could talk to the advisory committee, the RAC, so that RAC can say, okay, this is how we would like to proceed.
Yeah, they can issue, you know, their opinion in a position statement to us, and I think that's fine. I think everyone's concern, I think, is to make sure that there's something defensible.
Yeah.
And whether it's a census blocks or it's taxing districts or something else, as long as it's fair and equitable and there wasn't any bias and then, you know, dairy rigging something to fit something else. If it's defensible, that's what I think they're going to come back with. And that's something we'd all have to be comfortable with, to say, we chose this outside of the accepted, protocol. But here's the reason and here's why it works. And it may be helpful too if, I know you folks have done this like all over the country, literally. And is there something else that aligns with what we've called taxing districts? I know, you know, in other states and stuff, there may be something that looks similar, where they may have had a similar, and maybe with even, I'm not sure where else in Connecticut, but maybe somewhere else that you've done this, that you can give us some advice on what they did.
I can talk to somebody at the redistricting office at the Bureau of Census. I know them. I can talk to them. But typically, you know, what the norm is to use census blocks, because that is the redistricting data that the Bureau of Census publishes every 10 years. And we can argue that that data is not correct, or it's undercount, overcount. We can argue that. But this public law 94-171 redistricting data is primarily published for that purpose. And I can talk to the census office, and I think your city attorney it would be helpful to invite him or her to this meeting, so that once we get a clear vision of how you would, or what would work for your city, we would do that, but the norm is to use the census blocks.
Okay. Now, in terms of next steps, the next meeting is a public hearing. So I think it will depend on the RAC having a discussion with council, right? In terms of what will be presented for the public hearing, or if there is any decision to make any changes to that.
When is the public hearing?
August 8th.
August 8th.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's something that, again, may need to be moved out while this other information, while we're still analyzing this and getting the other information, and then still to be able to fall within the guidelines for notice and everything else.
Right.
August 8th for me is in the middle of early voting. I believe that's a Tuesday night, which means we've got voting till 8 o'clock that night, and which I'm in charge of. So I might not be able to be much good. I wonder where they're going to hold the meeting, because it isn't going to be in the virtual, maybe. It's not going to be in the community room, because we're using that for voting that night.
August 8th is a Thursday.
Oh, that's also early voting, 8 till 8 at night.
Okay.
But my point was more that and what's the sense of the rest of the people on the committee about, are we not ready, or will we be ready for August 8th? You know, next week is August is August 1st.
And that's,
If I'm
I
the
don't
only
think,
person who is not
No, no,
comfortable
no.
with this, I will relent.
no. I don't think it's just you, Diane. I think, Esther, the schedule that you had sent out the other day, do we have another meeting scheduled for this group for next Thursday?
No, there is,
Right.
Just the
So
hearing.
given that, if all we have is email between now and August 8th, then Diane, I totally agree with you that I think we all,
And I have to say, I just because I'll put on my FOIA hat for a minute. There's probably a whole lot of stuff that we can't be doing via email because I think we're considered an actual committee. So I'll let Esther speak to that, but if that's the case, then we
No.
can't be.
but if you wish, we can, we can schedule something for next week. We just need to have the agenda posted more than 24 hours.
My suggestion would be to leave the 8th, and as I've said from the beginning, I think the public hearing needs to be pushed out. I don't think we're ready now, and I'm not sure we would be ready by then, but I'll defer to
Esther?
everybody else.
I think just for clarification, I think a lot of the discussion regarding the timeline is something that you're gonna have to talk with the law department about, because that is part of, like the dates are set in the ordinance.
you're saying the
So
September 25th date is set, correct? But
actually the date is technically 90 days from the date you were appointed. So that is actually like September 10th. So, but that is a discussion that I think you guys, you need clarification from somebody with much more concrete information
Esther, the
and
the
knowledge.
date of August 15th is on the calendar. Is
As
that an
well.
additional public meeting or is that just our
Well,
meeting?
it's a regular meeting of the Reapportionment Advisory Committee.
Can we switch them?
You could move the.
Do we have the opportunity to push that to the 15th?
Good idea, Ken.
We'll meet on the 8th, but have the public meeting on the 15th. Is it? I guess you have to talk to
I'll talk to, the
attorneys
legal
and
counsel, and
things
then
if we
I'll
could do
just,
that.
yeah.
Because I know did you public notice the August 8th meeting yet? Did it
I
go
mean, they're all posted on our website.
Yeah,
So, and
Yeah.
all the links and all the information. But I will double check with legal about switching public hearing to the
I agree with
15th.
Diane. It doesn't make sense for us to have a public meeting on August 8th if we don't have our information together. If we haven't come up with some kind of an agreement, how we're gonna move forward.
Okay, so
I
just
tend
to
to
make
think
sure.
whatever that the public meeting would, how, because we haven't even talked about what the presentation would be and how all that would be run, but I tend to think that most residents will be kind of at my level, where they will want to understand the option and the pros and cons. I think that's pretty straightforward of what are the benefits of this, what are the cons of this, and then make decisions from there. But and if that's not going to, first of all, I don't know how much participation there's going to be anyway, but we owe it to the people that do show up to be able to at least articulate that.
And
Right.
if I may ask Stuart, if we could get the addresses of all the officials so that we do not throw them out of their district, that would be helpful for us to put it on the map and see where they live.
Yeah,
That would be helpful.
again, I'll send them to Esther, but it's easy enough to look them up. But I can look up the district they're in as well, of course.
Okay. All right, so just to make sure, we will be providing Sam and Pretty the addresses for the Board of Ed and Common Council, right? Just to make sure the folks are not districted out of
Mhm.
their district.
Mhm.
We'll look into switching the public hearing date. And then another next step is the follow-up conversation with legal. And any other items that we see as next steps other than that? No? Okay.
Mm.
Well, I think that is pretty good. And with that, I move to adjourn this meeting. How does everyone vote? Yes? Yay.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.
All
Have a good
right.
Have a
night.
good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Okay.
you, everybody.